What is going on, interwebs? This is some Outlast gameplay as a backdrop to the subject of today's video, which is interesting, a new kind of turn for me. It's about a TV show, actually, that actually premiered last night on FX. Some of you may have watched it, some of you may not have watched it. I highly recommend, if you are able to, either on a streaming service or on demand, something like that, I highly recommend you check out the new FX show called Taboo. And the reason I'm playing Outlast while I'm talking about this is because there's some pretty taboo shit going on in Outlast. Let's face it. I mean, you literally come across a dude fucking a dead body. But anyway, the show Taboo, which I hope does not take the route of The Bastard Executioner, which was directed by the same guy who did Sons of Anarchy. Bastard Executioner came out last year and was canceled immediately after, even before the first season actually ended, because the ratings dropped off near the end of the first season, and the guy was just like, well, I'm not gonna fucking make it if they're not gonna fucking watch it. That's literally what he said. So, that's it for Bastard Executioner, but Taboo premiered last night, and it is a very intriguing and interesting show. It has Tom Hardy in it, and if you don't know who Tom Hardy is, he was I guess you would call him the bad guy in The Revenant. If you watch The Revenant, that Leonardo DiCaprio movie, where he finally got a fucking Oscar for once. DiCaprio's character fought a bear fairly early on in the movie, and he was incapacitated, and his son was murdered by a guy that was supposed to be protecting him. That guy who Leonardo DiCaprio eventually kills, spoiler alert, at the end of the movie, was played by Tom Hardy. If you did not watch that, but you watched Child 44, which I doubt you did, because that was kind of an under-the-radar type movie based on a book. I don't know if The Revenant was. I do know Child 44 was, because I actually have the book. Tom Hardy actually played the Soviet soldier who was investigating the child murders. You know, he was the main, so to speak, main character in that movie. So Tom Hardy's had a few movies under his belt, and he is the main character for Taboo. James... what was his name? James... Chanley Chart, something like that. Some kind of Britishy name. Delaney. I think that's what it was. James Delaney. He recently comes back from Africa after his father passed away, and the whole reason the show is called Taboo, there might be some kind of what people back then would qualify as pagan type things that Tom Hardy's character had done or was into in Africa. But during the entire first episode, there is a backstory being told that you kind of sort of miss if you're just not paying attention, or if you're just like focusing on the main focus or the main story that's being bluntly presented to you, and it's that Tom Hardy's character, who has been away in Africa for at least a decade, maybe more, probably about 12 years, I think they mentioned. He's inherited land from his father, the only thing he can inherit or will inherit. And the land is it's on the Canadian-American border, and it basically, owning that land at that point in time, is set in 1814. Owning that land at that point in time basically means you own Vancouver. And if you own Vancouver, you own the tunnel, or the pathway to China on that side of the world. So it's very lucrative to whoever gets it, the Canadians or the Americans. And he knows that, and they're trying to underplay it that that's not what the case is, and that they want him to sell the land. I'm not going to do like a whole bunch of spoilers, but that's the main story. The sub story that you kind of miss if you're not paying attention is, and the reason why the show is called Taboo, is that throughout the entire first episode, it's insinuated that Tom Hardy's character and his, I believe they said half-sister, had been in an incestuous relationship, which during that time, which I find funny because literally centuries beforehand, people had been having incestuous relationships for the longest time in England to preserve bloodlines, so to speak, to keep the bloodlines pure. But since, God and all that came into play and it was heavily, everywhere, it was frowned upon. And it's implied that Tom Hardy's character had been having an incestuous relationship with his half-sister, who is played by Robb Stark's Valyrian wife from season 2/3 of Game of Thrones. She was murdered at the Red Wedding, if you remember that scene, if you watched Game of Thrones. She was brutally stabbed in her stomach. But that's Tom Hardy's half-sister. I don't know her name, so I apologize. I just know she was Robb Stark's Valyrian wife. There's actually a few Game of Thrones characters so far. The High Sparrow, who was recently killed off, and Lord Tyrell, who was also killed off when Cersei blew up the Baelor. They are both in this show. They work for the East India Trading Company. Again, I don't know their real-life names. I just know the actors. I recognize their faces. So, the High Sparrow and Lord Tyrell, Marjorie's father, from Game of Thrones, are actually in this show, too. There was another character in this show that I recognize. Torsten, from Vikings, who was killed off in, season 3 or 2, when Ragnar took his forces to fight in Mercia for Queen Quenthrith. Torsten took an arrow to the arm, they cut his arm off, and then he eventually sacrificed himself for a distraction or something. But he was killed off in Vikings. His character's name was Torsten. He actually plays Tom Hardy's sister's husband. I don't think he's going to last long because he's threatening to kill Tom Hardy quite vagrantly throughout the episode. But the whole backstory that they allude to that you might miss is that Tom Hardy's character and his character's sister had been in an incestuous relationship, and the product of such was that they actually had a child. And rather than having it out there are rumors, but rather than having it out there, oh yeah, we fucked and we had a kid, she gives birth to the kid, and their father actually gives the kid away to a family that's known to them. And Tom Hardy's character actually meets the guy who's been taking care of what I assume is his son. It could be that, Tom Hardy's character's father had been having the incestuous relationship with Tom Hardy's character's sister. But the tone and the insinuation is that James had been having sex with his sister, and they had a child, and the child was pawned off another family to take care of, so there wouldn't be any scandal, although there are rumors. And Tom Hardy's character actually finds the guy taking care of the kid and gives him money for, back payment for taking care of him and to take care of him in the future. And it's quite a substantial sum by the look on the guy's face, because he just opens up a sack and he's like, whoa! His eyes get all fucking big. And Tom Hardy's character is like, this is for past, present, and future, and puts the money away just in case he gets rambunctious like I was as a teenager. It's a very intriguing show, and my hat is off to Tom Hardy, who has his fingers in the development of the show. He's not just a character, but he's also on the... I don't think... He's not a director or anything like that, but he's got position of power on the show, like a producer or something. So my hat is off to him to making his show on a cable network that has such a controversial topic. And they actually say fuck twice in the show, completely uncensored, which is interesting for cable television. But it's really interesting, really intriguing. I highly suggest it. If you missed the premiere last night, do not miss out. It's very interesting. I promise you might like it. But I'll see you in the next one. Later.